Hey everyone, welcome to the Get the Bag podcast, episode 11. I'm your
Wow.
host, Gladia Castro. I've got my co host, Tim Park. Yeah, we're at 11 episodes down. That's time flies.
I know, I
Um,
know.
I'm really excited for our guest today, but just a little reminder this is a live show, so feel free to drop your questions. We'll try to answer them as we go throughout the conversation. But today's episode, how to become a millionaire in your 20s. Tim, you remember your 20s?
Oh
Not
yeah,
to
I
age
do.
ourselves.
I know, right?
Well,
That was
today's
crazy.
guest, he's in his 20s, a serial entrepreneur. He's opened several businesses from car flipping to selling cookies. He's done it all. Dropped out of college his first semester, probably quicker than I did. I dropped off after a year or so. Fast forward to now, he's running a successful acquisitions and dispositions real estate business. Let's welcome Austin to the Get the Bag podcast.
Woo! What's up,
What's
everybody?
up? What's up?
What's
What's
Hello,
up?
hello.
up? Hold
I
on.
appreciate first and foremost, I want to say I appreciate y'all for having me on. As always, I'm really excited to kind of get together, have a conversation with y'all, and kind of bring as much value to the audience as much as possible. So appreciate you guys for having bringing me on, and I'm really excited for our conversation.
Yeah, bro. I already know. I came on last week we did a little live calls.
Yep,
And I already know you bring that heat, you bring that
bring
energy.
that fire,
Yeah, you
That's
bring
it.
that
That's
fire.
it.
and know the vibes.
Yeah, yeah. Super welcome again. Yeah, so we kind of did a little digging on you, and
Yep.
as we do a little private a little go no go on you.
Oh yeah, let's go. Okay, okay, okay.
Investigating. So you really are a serial entrepreneur. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Kind of sounds like you started this entrepreneurial journey very young.
Yeah, like cookies and everything,
Yeah, I
bro.
mean, it goes back for some time. I mean, like you guys are saying. I mean, back in I think I was fifth grade, so I was like 9, 10, something around that age. I learned how to bake cookies from scratch just because I love cookies. I still love cookies to this day, by the way.
I
But
mean, who doesn't?
who doesn't? And I actually, real quick, I prefer cookies over birthday cake. So, anyways,
Oh,
Hey,
okay.
hey, hey!
yeah,
I'm
Hey,
with you. I'm with you on that.
yeah, oh yeah.
I love it.
But so how? I mean, kind of going back to that. I mean, my entrepreneur journey has been something I've been doing for a long time. Fifth grade, I learned how to bake cookies, and I bagged them up. I had actually two varieties, right? I had an oatmeal chocolate chip cookie, and I had a regular chocolate chip cookie. So I had a variety of options for my clients, But I would bag them up, sell them for $1 for two for a pair, and it kind of just went along. Middle school, I was selling candy. I used to actually go door to door knocking with my brother, my oldest brother, and I would sell candy that way. And I was like in sixth grade at that time, so I was like 11, 12. So 11th grade, fast forwarding to like I was 16, I went to an entrepreneurship program. And then 18 years old, I dropped out of college my first semester, started my first automotive detailing business, and then kind of went from there. Had some lots of trials and tribulations, lots and lots of trials and tribulations. Started an online drop shipping store, trials and tribulations with that as well. And kind of here now, ended up landing me here into real estate, and now I do real estate. So that's pretty cool. It's kind of a quick background story of who I am and how I'm here today.
That's dope. I mean, I love that journey. It sounds like you have a lot of experience in starting businesses and then also, maybe having some hiccups here and everything and just learning during
Just
that
kept
process,
with
right?
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, overall, and the thing that I always say is that like business is almost their exact reflection of personal life as well. And then what I've realized is that through lots of trials and tribulations, both in my personal life and business life, a lot of the lessons you learn is almost complementary to each. So when I do learn these certain things, I apply it to almost all aspects of my life, and it makes everything abundant. So that's why I appreciate entrepreneurship and business so much, is because it teaches me lots of life lessons and wisdoms that I can apply in personal relationships, personal business, or whatever it may be. So, yeah, business will. I mean, I think the failure rate for entrepreneurship is like 90%. But the reason
Yeah.
Yeah.
why is because there's nothing guaranteed in entrepreneurship. There's nothing guaranteed in business, and this is why resilience and being strong and understanding how the mindset works to make you strong is so important, because that's what will push you to the trenches. And especially coming from anybody who's listening who's starting from nothing, you're going to have to be resilient, because
Hmm.
trials and tribulations are adamant to success in your entrepreneurship journey. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that experience has helped me to where I'm at now, and I'm sure I'm still going to go through plenty of trials and tribulations. But yeah, man, absolutely, resiliency is definitely a huge thing.
I love it. Yeah, that, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, we even talked a couple weeks ago. We had an
Hmm.
episode on like just like mental health. Like you mentally have to just prepare yourself because you don't know what makes like you, this is kind of the business journey, right? Like entrepreneurship, like you're going to have your like yays and like wins, and then you have your lows, and that's usually where people give up because it gets hard. It's not, I think people get all flashy on Instagram and like social media,
Hmm.
like, oh, look at me, I'm a millionaire in my 20s, and yeah, just do this.
Right.
2 months
Right.
and you'll be a millionaire. So I think it's cool to like keep it real,
For sure.
because it's not going to be like that. But it sounds like you did try the college route. Like, what made you
Hmm.
want to do that? Was it just like, well, I want to just say that I tried college?
It was almost like I still remember in high school, 12th grade. I was always like, man, F college. I don't need college. And I remember too, a lot of people. I remember I was like getting a little upset because it almost felt like left out. And the reason why I say that is because I felt like people when I was in 12th grade, they're getting to accept into all these colleges. And to me, college wasn't a big deal, so I didn't really apply to too many colleges. And what
Yeah,
ended up
same.
happening was a lot of people started getting their applications back, and oh, I got into SDSU, or I got into this, I got into that, and I kind of felt left out. I still remember that feeling, but I always knew within me that college wasn't going to be something necessary. And the reason why I actually started going to college was for business management. Now,
Hmm.
Mm.
the quick story behind this as well is that actually the interesting part is that I had I didn't have a full, it was like a half scholarship, but I was going to go to the University of Arizona for business. And what
Mm.
ended up happening was I had like $150,000 covered, but I needed to cover the rest, which was another 100K.
Hmm.
And what ended up happening was I went out to U of A with my parents. I was looking at the dorms, and it came down to it. One day I was thinking to myself, am I really about to get myself into $100,000 of debt that I can never take away from myself
Mm.
for business? You know, and the thing is that I was asking myself, is this the best option for me? Is this going to really excel me and push me towards the things I want to do? And what ended up happening was that, good, thankfully enough, my financial aid fell through last second, like within the last week
Mm.
for U of A. So I was like, all right, well, I have no choice. I'm gonna have to go to a community college, which was called Southwestern College in San Diego.
Mhm.
And started going to Southwestern College, and I had 4 history classes. So one was music history, ancient music history too. I was learning about
Oh,
like
interesting.
1400s, the first instrument
Wow.
created, yeah, and art history, and also 2 American history classes, which actually I enjoyed the American history. However, we can see that these classes have no correlation with business. So
Mm-mm.
Right.
what was happening is that like I was going to these classes and I was really not liking it, and I was like telling myself, why am I forcing myself to go to these classes to get a grade when none of these have any accumulation to me being successful in business? Now, let me ask myself this question. What if I were to utilize this time that I'm coming here and all this effort I'm putting into writing 2-page essays every single day? If I can create that effort into learning business and how to run and operate a business, okay, let me ask myself. And it came to a point where I remember one night, this is hilarious. One night I actually had a final that was due for my history class. It was History 101. And I was like procrastinating on it. I was like, man, I don't want to do this. I was typing out all night. I stayed up until like 3 o'clock in the morning. And the next morning I turned it in. And a week later I get my paper back. And this final was like worth 50-60% of her grade. And the guy was like, the professor was like, hey, Austin, he was like, here's your paper back. He was like, I'm going to give you a whole grade less than what it is because you didn't put your name on
Mm.
it. And I was like, it's a
What?
wrap.
What?
I was like, it's a
That
wrap. I'm out.
that's
Literally,
crazy.
that day was a day that was a straight turning point. And I remember I got with a buddy and I was like, hey, I've been thinking about this idea business for a detailing business because I've always been really into cars. And I was like, let's start up a detailing business. And we ended up starting a detailing business. And that's kind of the story on how I really started my genuine like first business and entrepreneurship journey. That was a major turning point. But I really realized at that moment that college isn't meant for everybody. And you have to ask yourself, is college going to push me forward toward the things I want, or is it going to hold me back? Now, college is good for some people. Like if you want to be a
Right.
doctor or
Hmm.
a lawyer, that's adamant, right? However, it's not mandatory for everything to be successful, you know?
Hmm. No, that's great. I love that story because I mean, I went to college, but what I realized when I was there, they didn't teach you how to be an entrepreneur. They taught you how
Right.
to work for other people or
Right.
work in your profession, right? And so when we did have a project, like we were trying to raise money for the football team to go to Europe, right? And so what we did was we um, had a celebrity golf tournament because we knew some athletes and all that. So the school turned us down because it was in line with their alumni golf tournament, right?
Mm.
And it was going to take away from that money,
Mm,
right? What I realized was there was a lot of politics there as well too in
It's
college. So
politics.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
And just like you said too, and this is what I've realized about the school system overall is that it doesn't create independent people, it creates workers. And
right.
that's one thing
Yeah.
that I realized really, really quick. And I was like, if I continue to push myself through college, I'm just gonna, if we want to call it this, indoctrinate myself to that mentality, which is the exact opposite of what I want to be a successful entrepreneur. So I seen that and I had to make a decision right there. All right, I'd rather learn rather than reading through books. I'd rather learn through watching videos and seeing other people do it and actually experiencing it
Mhm.
myself. And what I can say now, being on the other side of the river, is that that's absolutely the best way to learn anything about business is just getting your feet wet and actually doing it.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it sounds like you knew from the get. You had wisdom way
Hmm.
beyond your years, because
Hmm.
18-years who's telling themselves
Yeah,
is like
I was just
is
thinking that.
college like a good investment? Like everyone's like, hey, I'm ready to party. Like let's go. Like you don't have that mindset. So definitely props to you for having that. I mean, even for me, like college, I knew college wasn't for me. I'm a different learner. Like I'm kind
Hmm.
of what you said. Like, I have to be out on the streets, just like doing things. Like you know, I'm, everyone just kind of is a different type of learner. But I dropped out probably 2 years in, because I was like, this is way too much money. I'd rather be working in that case and like just picking up life skills as I go. So I was just like, F it. Like, let me just drop out. So props to you for figuring out much earlier. I always look back like, oh gosh, in my 20s, but I don't try to be that kind of person, that salty person, and later like, oh man, I should have done this and that, because everything happens for a reason. But I love like kind of your mentality that goes around it. So kind of going off of like, okay, you try all these business ventures,
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
failed. Some I'm assuming maybe you were profitable. I don't know. What was it that, because it was quite recent that you got into real estate, what,
Hmm.
like a year ago? What kind of propelled you to get into real estate?
It's like a really good question. So, um, I remember being really young, like like in elementary school and middle school, and thinking that like having like this intuitive feeling about real estate. And I even remember back in middle school when I was like selling candy, just something about real estate always really stuck out to me.
Mhm.
And what ended up happening was that I ended up having my first business, Color Subtle Details, and I actually ended up losing that company, that business overnight because I had somebody steal my van, and I lost that company
Mm,
overnight. That's a
Wow.
crazy.
wow,
That's an
that's a
extremely
crazy
crazy story
story.
too.
Yeah.
After that too, I lost that business. I became homeless. It's an insane story. But after that, what ended up happening was I went through more trials and tribulations. I ended up I actually was trying to flip a car. I found a 350Z that needed work. We like had no engine in it. We had to put a new engine in it. We ended up trying to do that. That ended up failing. And then I had a Apex Supplies. That was the automotive accessory store that I started for drop shipping. Studied the Instagram algorithm for viral marketing, funneled in organic traffic to that, and then that ended up not working out because the partnership or however that ended up going. And then I ended up having to get two jobs. I was working two full-time jobs, and at that point too, I remember I was feeling like, man, this is tough. This is really really
Hmm.
tough. I ended up saying I don't like the actual the 9 to 5 stuff. I ended up starting flipping cars, and while I was flipping cars, I started making a lot of money at once. So a quick example is that I think every 2 weeks I was getting paid like $800 $900 for a full time job, and I was getting paid like higher than minimum wage in California at the time.
Right.
And then when I flipped a car, I made $1,000 in like 5 days, and I was like, bruh, I was like, I can put all my time in. 8 hours a day for 5 days for every 2 weeks and get paid $800, or I can do this part time and make 1,000, in 5 days. I ended up flipping a police interceptor, and then I ended up flipping I had a 300 ZX. I ended up flipping that. Anyways, long story short, what ended up happening was I had a mentor called, his name is Brian Casella. And a long time ago, I remember I was watching one of his YouTube videos, and he had a mentor in the real estate investing space named Mike Wolf. And
Hmm.
then at that time, Mike Wolf, when I was flipping cars, ended up opening up a program for the first time, and he was like charging 15,000, and I was making a lot of money. and Mike Wolf had payment plans for his actual program, and I was like, it's time to take the risk. So I started flipping a bunch of more cars, increased my volume, and started funneling a lot of my money into that. Now, there's a lot more trials and tribulations after that. Like, I joined another program for $10,000 in San Diego, got completely screwed over. So that's kind of
There's
like
a
the
lot
story
of those
behind.
stories that I
Yeah,
know
for
of,
sure.
like
Yeah,
10 to
100%.
30,000. I'm like,
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing too is that, like, the hilarious part about that was that Mike Wolf was a really good program, but this was another program I joined in person in San Diego. And what ended up happening was that one's a super long story, but the quick summary of it is that a lot of the stuff that was promised ended up being the complete opposite. I was comping off of Redfin, and I was also using Google Sheets as my CRM. Keep in mind, I paid $10,000, you know?
Wow.
So, and what ended up happening with that was that I was actually, this is the weird part about it, is that I was taught through that program to actually get properties off the MLS. And what I was doing is that I was hustling hard. I was like, because of my skill set from buying and selling cars, I already knew how to find deals. So I just transferred that over into real estate on the MLS, and I was like scrolling all the time, always looking, always refreshing, seeing what came up new. And as soon as something came up new, I would hit them up right away. Hey, can I go look at the property? What ended up happening was, like, after calling a bunch of agents and going through a bunch of properties, I finally got one under contract, and I was going to sell it to this investor that I went underneath this program for. I was going to make a 50K profit. That investor ended up backing out last day of contingency. And then on top of that, somebody else ended up buying the property for the exact amount that I was going to send it out to him for. So,
Oh, wow.
yeah, I mean, it's just a pretty crazy story. And just like you said, the important part about this is that, to understand, once again, going back to the original conversation, is that trials and tribulations are going to be a part of it. So you just have to understand that and know that when certain things happen, the mind frame that you have to have is that this is what I've always noticed, and this is the truth, is that I've noticed that when bad stuff begins to happen, and it's like, you've heard the saying, when it rains, it pours. Right on the other side, you're going to get the exact opposite, where it's going to get a breakthrough. And I've always noticed when a bunch of stuff starts to happen to me, I'm like, okay, I'm ready for the next breakthrough. And almost every single time, that's always happened. And that's what ended up happening with real estate. I ended up going virtual. In the first 30 days, I got 6 properties under contract, made like 60 to 100,000. I actually would have made 100,000 if I sold this house I live in now, but I closed on it, made 60K in my first 30 days. So
nice.
I mean, that just goes to show about the trials and tribulations of what you go through ends up leading to success.
Yeah. No, I was going to ask, because you kind of touched on it when you were describing the mental aspect of it, and I was just going to ask how you framed your mental thoughts after going through that program, and you're thinking, like, is this for real, or can I really do this? And how did you frame your mind? I know that you came from flipping cars, and you knew you had confidence in doing it, but real estate was a different game. So how did you prepare your mental state on that?
So it's a really good question. And a lot of it too. So and you've heard this before too, the saying of, like, know what your purpose is. And I think there's a couple of things I can say about that. Is that one thing that really pushed me through all this trials and tribulation is always wanting to get back to my family. And like the backstory behind myself and my parents is that we come from, like, a struggling background. My parents were, like, compared to their parents before, they're living like a life in lavishness. But with us and my family, we're like struggling all the time, struggling to pay bills. And I remember when, like, I'm a huge dog lover, and we would have dogs. Yeah, I absolutely love. How can you not love dogs?
I know,
I
right?
know. I'm just saying. You're a little sus if you don't, man.
I know, right?
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, we would have. I love my dogs, and the thing is that this is like one key thing for me is that certain things would happen where, like, one of my dogs would have, like, some kind of thing that would come up that would, like, it would be life or death for them, but we would have no money to pay to take them to the vet. And I remember the sorrow that my family felt just for that example. And that's just one tiny minute example of things I've experienced in my life with my family. And I always remember saying when I was little and young is that when I grow up, I'm going to do whatever it takes to make my family rich and get my family the life they deserve. So when I go through these trials and tribulations of going through all this BS, I think about that. I'm like, man, I've gone through so much in my life. My parents sacrificed so much to get in the position I'm in now. For me to give up would be doing my family and myself a disservice, because I know I can push through this and get my family the life they deserve. So that's kind of the mentality that I have behind it. And that's kind of what pushes me and always pulls me out of the gutters, is that mentality, is that, like, hey, I got to do this for myself and my family. So, and there's a lot of times too where I've had my back against the wall, but I mean, at the end of the day, once again, it boils back down to trials and tribulations are going to be a part of it. And you have to understand how the mind works, because once you see the functions of it, you can begin to pluck out things about the mind that are incongruent within yourself to make your brain think more efficiently, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
No,
totally.
yeah.
I think the other when we did a goals episode, I was talking about
Hmm.
how like the brain works, and like how the fear of like or anything that we're scared of doing, like our brain reacts to that. Like it's almost like telling it, like if we step out of our comfort zone, our brain doesn't like that. It's not trained to do that. So you literally have to train your brain to be like, no, it's good. Like I got this. So it's like humans like like kind of have that already, and so that's why it's so tough when we say step outside your comfort zone,
Right.
or like once you see like start changing your mindset, people's be like, oh, like you're different. It's like, yes, my brain is like
Hmm.
evolving.
Right.
And we don't think of it that way. We think, at in our 20s our brains stop like growing or developing. Like, no, it's just the beginning.
Yeah.
So it really
Absolutely.
that's where it's like your mindset, it really starts there. Other if if you're not mentally prepared for anything, you're more than likely, anything that's tough that comes up, it, it's not going to be a good thing. You're going to be part of the 90%, right? That fail.
Right. And that's why too, what I can say about that real quick as well is that, like, just like you were saying about the discomfort thing, this is why it's important to understand the way the mind works so you can see it in action when it's happening to you. So for example, you
Hmm.
begin to feel uncomfortable and you have to analyze yourself and ask yourself, what is it about the situation that makes me feel uncomfortable? Is it because I'm going into a new environment that I have no idea what's going to happen? Okay,
Hmm.
let's think about it. And the thing is this, is that we're engineered in our genetics to be comfortable. Just like you're saying, it's almost old wiring that hasn't caught up to today's
Right.
world. So now
Hmm.
understanding that when certain emotions come up within us, we have to understand that and we have to push through it. So now that's the thing too, is that I feel like a lot of the mindset stuff is very, very surface level. It comes down to, it boils down to actually understanding the functions behind the mind so we can see it in action and know how to proceed forward with it. And a quick example is that I think a lot of people get confused, especially when they listen to me speak or whatever it may be, and they think that I have like no emotions, like whatever. Like I still get nervous when like doing cold calls. I get nervous going live, but the
Hmm.
thing is that once again, it's pushing myself through that wanting to be in the comfort zone, because I know in my mind it just wants to keep me in the comfort zone.
Right.
And knowing that, I just like embrace it and I push myself through it. And every single time I push through it, it always is beneficial for myself.
Hmm.
Every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's also the the little thoughts in your head. That's also your brain being
Right.
like, no, like telling yourself, no, you're not good enough, or you're not this. Like you have to literally power through. Like even doing the live with you, I was like hella nervous, but like to do it. But thinking about it, I was like, F it, like let me just go in there, and it turned out fine. Like I didn't get as many pickups, but like the fact is, like, we talk ourselves out of so many
Hmm.
things.
Right.
It is.
What I
Yeah.
what I can say about that really quick as well is that there's this book that I read called You're a Badass. And here's the
Hmm.
thing about
Hmm.
understanding the functions of the mind as well, is that there's a
Yeah.
conscious mind and there's a subconscious mind.
Right.
Yep.
So what happens is that there's a certain way that you're wired in your neurology, just from past experiences and the way that you're raised, for you to think in a particular way. Now, what happens is that these thoughts start to come up. And the reason being is because of these old wiring from
Hmm.
before. And that's
Hmm.
coming from the subconscious mind. And what's
Hmm.
important to understand is that, hey, look, I know exactly where I'm headed and I'm creating this new version of myself. And I know that these thoughts are deriving from past experiences that have no relevancy to what I'm doing right now. And what's even deeper about it, to really get over this, is that these thoughts are created from an initial experience that you have. So
Hmm.
what I do and what's always helped me out is that anytime I get continuous thoughts like that, I sit down with myself and I ask myself, why is it that I think this way? What is it about me? What is it about me saying that I'm not important enough to do something? Why is it that I feel that way? Well, it's because I remember back in this situation, this happened, and then I analyze that situation in my mind. What about that situation made me feel that way? And I add a new perspective to it and bring understanding to it. Now, once you bring understanding to these past situations, you pull out that thought from the root rather than trying to bandage over it over just the top
Hmm.
layer. And this is
Right.
what I mean about why it's adamant and important to understand the functions of the mind, because this is what it's going to take to actually create yourself into a new person. Because what happens, and I can say this really quick, is that a lot of us are grown and raised into a world that we had really no choice about. So an example is that if you have parents who have the 9 to 5, mentality, and don't know how to, don't know how to work with money, whatever it may be, those exact patterns get instilled into us. Now to
Right.
proceed forward, we have to rip those out from the roots and implant new versions of ourselves. And to get somewhere new, there's a saying that says, in order to get something we've never done, in order to get something we've never had, we have to do things we've never done. So once again, this ties back into the idea of why it's important to understand the way the mind functions so we can utilize it to our advantage fully. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that that's a total gem right there, because I think people don't ask themselves questions on that the exact example that you gave, right? Why am I thinking this way? And when you get down to the root of it, you can actually solve a lot of issues that within your personal life and your business life, right? Your
Absolutely.
journey. So
Absolutely.
I think that's really important. That big gem there, guys. Big gem.
Absolutely. And I'll say this really, really quick as
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
since we're on this topic as well, is that the way, and just like you were talking about, it's really important to ask yourself questions. And the reason why is because the way that the mind functions, the way that it actually thinks and creates answers within the mind, the conscious mind, is through questions. So rather than like thinking one particular thing and being like, trying to figure something out, you have to ask yourself, what is it about this particular thing that makes me think this way? And when you ask yourself that question, your conscious mind is going to grab into the subconscious mind and bring the answer out. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
So this is why
it's digging deep.
Yeah, that's deep.
super deep, super
I
super
love
deep.
it.
Yeah, mind, the way the function of the mind works is one of my top passions, and it just makes me very, very. It's so intriguing. And the thing too is that what I can say about this as well, real quick, is that when you understand the functions of the mind at a high level, first, the best thing at first, the first breakthrough is you begin to create these breakthroughs within your own life and spot things within yourself and others. And on top of that, what happens is that you begin to have a better communication ability and know how to communicate properly to create a desired result. So when you go into the business world, whether it's developing relationships or getting a sale, you have a higher understanding, and you can kind of see what people's limiting beliefs, and you can break through it by asking them questions as well. So a lot of this too, some of it is like NLP. A really good book to look into is called Dianetics. That's also a really good book as well. That one's super like technical and stuff like that, but a bunch of different books you can read on that correlate with this.
Yeah, and I'll just touch this before we can get on the next question. Is I do retrospectives in my 9 to 5 with like projects, or we call them postmortems, where maybe an event happened, and something, it's like figuring out the root cause of it. And we go through doing your 5 whys. You start with the first question, where you usually think, well, okay, what caused this problem? Why did this happen? And usually, like, we don't dig deep into the root cause. The surface level may be, well, it happened because of this. Well, why did it happen because of that? Well, it happened because reason 2. All right, well, and like you're literally digging until you get to the 5th why. And that's where the root cause is. It was totally opposite of what you originally thought. So sometimes you do have to sit there and think, like, why is this happening? Like, you have to, the best way to get answers is to ask those whys. Be a 5-year-old and be like, why,
Exactly.
you
Yes.
know? So I think it's probably cheaper than hiring a therapist. Maybe is like, just talk to yourself.
Exactly.
And of course, you want to have a good support system, but like it's being vulnerable with yourself, and which is something we don't do enough of. So I love all this like mindset stuff, because I think you can clearly see where it's helped you in your success. But kind of going into your success in real estate. So you've been in real estate, what, like a year-ish?
Yeah, just like literally, well, technically speaking, it's like been like a year and a few months, but when I went all on my own virtual, it's been about a year. I started first last February, and we're at the end of February 2022.
Yeah, because I remember seeing your videos of like you first hopping on the calls. I think, did you join Chris's ChargedUp U around that time as well?
Yeah, so right before that, you already know the story. I went through all those trials and tribulations. I had paid $15,000 for Mike Wolf's thing, and then got paid another $10,000 for another program, and then I ended up joining Chris Jefferson's. I actually have a video on my phone. Maybe you guys already know this, but I have a video where I was outside the bank. I was like broke. I had like $300 or something, $250 left, and I'm like, hey, I'm gonna try out this. Like, it was like my last shot. I was like, I'm gonna try this out. I'm about to deposit this $100, $200. into my account, and then we're going to get this and we're going to see where it takes us. I ended up joining Chris Jefferson's program. He actually teaches all the nuts and bolts, because what I found is that a lot of people teach about theory, like, oh, you just got to go here. You just got to find somebody who's motivated. And you're like, okay, how do I do that? Like,
exactly.
What's the exact, like, 1, 2, 3? I want like an actual A through Z on how I do that. And the thing about Chris Jefferson was that it was the last thing I needed to make everything work, was that the actual nuts and bolts. Hey, you're going to go and pull this list here. And once you pull this list, you're going to go here and skip trace it. Then you're going to import it into here, the styler. You're going to click this button. You're going to call people and use this script, you know? And then once you do that, get this contract, X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. So yeah, Chris Jefferson was somebody that I joined. I think that's how we ended up meeting as well.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Hey, shout out to the Chris Jefferson and the
shout out to Chris Jefferson.
Man, he's definitely the GOAT, man. He's definitely put us on game. And I would say, he for sure lays out the blueprint, which not many gurus really do. They just want to charge like, $5,000, $10,000, but you don't really get much. You don't get that investment in like the community and just like what the value that Chris brings. So that's really awesome to hear. So like tell us, like, okay, you get started, you said within a couple months you were able to lock up like 6 contracts. Like, tell us about your first year, like, summarize it.
Yeah, that's a good question. So first year, like first month, first 30 days, I was on a dialer almost all day. So I had call tools, and I was calling like a list from, I think it was GeoPoint Data I got it from. It was like a tired landlord list. And I think I pulled a list of about 1,000 to 1,500 people. And no, I think it was 1,000 people. Anyways, I was cold calling all those people. I ended up finding, I was cold calling them and I was text blasting. So my first portfolio deal in the house I live in now actually came from an SMS campaign. And then I think the other 2 deals or other 3 deals came from cold calling. I got all those deals, and right away, what I started doing was I started trying to expand. My team. So I was like, okay, I'm going to hire people. And I found 2 American people to work with me. And I tried to train them up, and like it took me like 2 months to really try to get that going, and that ended up not working out. And then I ended up moving out here to Tennessee, and a lot of my funds ended up drying out. So I was like trying to figure out what I wanted to do, and then I ended up just starting to get on the dialer again. It took me like a few months after that. It took me like, there was like a dry season for myself for like maybe 4 or 5 months or something like that, where I was getting absolutely no deals because I was trying to expand too quick. I was trying to scale too quick when I didn't know what I was doing, because I didn't really fully understand at that time. I didn't really fully understand the acquisition and disposition business to the full extent. And I was kind of like, well, I'm just going to get callers underneath me. And I didn't know about SOPs. I didn't know about training. I didn't know about any of that stuff. So I ended up failing with that. And I think when I failed with that too, it kind of like was like, I felt like I was like, when I was doing it, I felt great. But then when it failed, I kind of felt like, man, this is
that's a punch in the gut a little bit.
Yeah, punch in the gut, man. It's a punch in the gut. And I kind of just got back on my feet, started marketing again. And then a lot of deals too came from JVing and stuff like that. I think right now I've done like 12 deals or something around that. But right now I'm really, really honing in now and really starting to scale my team. I brought a VA on for the first time a month ago, and I'm really starting to scale now. So on a genuine standpoint, I have way more information now. I know exactly how to run the acquisition and disposition business now. So I'm really excited for this year, because this year I know exactly where I want things to put in place. Now it's just a matter of finding people to fill those positions. And man, this next year is going to be something I really, really look forward to this year upcoming.
Yeah, congrats on that, man. That's
Appreciate it, man.
amazing. And what actually made you move to Tennessee from California?
Yeah, so Cali and San Diego, a couple things. Number one is that like I've never really liked California as in regards to like politics. Now I don't want to get into politics or anything like that, but I've always been a person of freedom. I'm a huge patriot. So like for example, the Second Amendment stuff over there, I just don't really align with. So I always wanted to move out. Texas was actually going to be the one that I was planning to go to. However, what ended up happening was I didn't really even know about Tennessee before. I'd never gone to Tennessee. I actually found Tennessee, Knoxville in particular, through studying migration patterns, started marketing here, got properties under contract. And like, I was like, I can close. I'm going to get money from these deals, and I can close on this house that I have under contract, because this one was like in the best condition. And I was like, I can use that money that I'm making, and I can close on this house, and I can move out. And to kind of tie this with a bow from previously, this like when I first lost my first business, I was actually, when I had my color photo details business, I was actually working with my older brother. I was paying him 15 an hour, and I was sleeping on his couch, and I was doing that business every single day. And I never really had my own personal space since I was like 16. I was always like sleeping with somebody. Like I never had my own room, stuff like that. And
Right.
what ended up happening was, fast forwarding, is that I ended up being homeless. I ended up living with my friend. I ended up moving into my dad's house, lived with him in his room, his master bedroom. So we shared a bed. And then ended up moving into my mom's house. Then I finally had a room. And then I've always wanted to own my own house. So I was like, man, this is the opportunities here. I was like, it's about to be a wrap. It's about to be a wrap.
Yeah.
Right.
And the thing too is that the last thing I'll add to that is that I was like, you know what? If I go out and I move across the country, number one, that's super dope. Like who who does that? Like
Right.
who just packs
Mhm.
their stuff and leaves? And I was like, it was just so like adventurous to me. And I was like, I just seen like, hey, I want to disassociate myself with a lot of these people here in San Diego, my old friends and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I really just want to create a new chapter in my life. And that's essentially what it was all about. I was
Mhm.
like, I don't know anybody in Tennessee. I don't know anybody in Knoxville, but you know what it's
Yeah.
going to be? It's going to be a great growing opportunity for me. And it's going to be something I look back on and tell my grandkids about. So that's kind of the mentality behind it when I decided to move out to Tennessee.
Yeah, I love that because I think, especially when you move to a city that you don't know anybody at, and then you actually make it in that city,
Yeah,
that's
you've
a
you've done
huge
that a few
testament.
times, huh, Tim?
Yeah, yeah. I did it in
Heck yeah, man.
Colorado and then here in Los Angeles.
Heck
So
yeah, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a cool feeling when you do. I mean, the trials and tribulations like you described are real.
For
Those are
sure.
real.
For
Especially
sure.
when you move into a new city and you don't know anybody, you don't have
Yeah,
any
man.
connections, and you're trying to start a business too. On
Yeah,
top
you're
of
Right.
that.
you're you're going through all of it, and that's one thing too, like that I've experienced, and I'm sure you can agree with as well. Is almost like we can call it culture shock or whatever it may
Yep.
be. And
Yep.
like out here, I'm probably like one of the darkest people out here. I feel like, so it's like, and the thing is too, I don't have family out here, so I feel like
Right.
when I was going through like before, when I would go through trials and tribulations, I'd be able to like vent to my brother or vent to my mom, but like
Mhm.
here, I don't really have anybody. So like a
Mhm.
lot of it came down to like, once again, back to the mindset thing of like, hey, what can I do to really build myself as much as possible? And I know that when I'm going through difficulties, I know that it's going to be something that's foundational for my future. So in the time of like, because there's been times where I've been here too, where like, and I'm this is just me being completely transparent, so people know that this is
Mhm.
just part of it, or that it may happen to you as well, and it's okay. But there's times where I was like, there was a week or 2 weeks where I didn't work, and I was like, I don't want to work. Like I just like I don't feel like doing this. Like man, I feel
Yeah.
like I don't have it within me, all this kind of stuff. So
Mhm.
you kind of have to like once again go back to that core understanding of how the mind works and all that stuff. And it's just part of it. And I know that a lot of this stuff is just gonna help me grow. And 5 years, 10 years down the road, it's just gonna build me into the best version of myself.
Yeah, that's cool. Speaking of
Love
like
it.
10 years, like what do you have like a goal for the next 10 years, or what's your 5-year plan, with your
Yeah.
business and, even personally? I mean, what do you want to achieve personally?
Whew, yeah, that's a good question, dude. So all right, so I'll tell you real quick about the actual like business side of it. So really, what I plan on doing is that, as you guys already know, I'm sure like hedge funds are going to be a huge thing over these next couple of years, because what's happening is that we have mass inflation, and these hedge
Mhm.
funds are bringing billions of dollars into the real estate industry. They're
Yeah.
they're they're selling a lot of their stocks in the real estate or in the stock market. They're bringing that and funneling all that money into real estate, but that's not going to last a long time. So what I'm doing right now is I'm actually starting to build a team out so I can reach out further, figure out where a lot of these hedge funds are buying, start working with hedge fund buyers, and funnel in money from these virtual markets. Almost, they're pretty much buying at ARV, and then having my own personal marketing here in Knoxville, Tennessee, and funneling that money I make through these virtual markets back into Tennessee and buying actual assets and burning out of those. So that's kind of like my next 4, 5, 6 year plan. Also, another part of it, byproduct as well, is starting to buy businesses here, because
Mhm.
this is a quick gem for anybody who's listening, is that Knoxville, Tennessee, and you can kind of just study migration patterns in general. So it's not just Knoxville, but a lot of this area of like this side of the country is starting to really grow. And the thing is
Mhm.
that the best way to make money is by spotting trends and getting in front of the trend, right? So you can ride that
Mhm.
wave.
Yep.
And
Right.
now what I see is that both a trend in real estate here and also a trend in business growth. So what I plan on doing as well is I start to do business acquisitions. Once I really dial in a lot of my real estate stuff, is we're going to do business acquisitions and go down that path. But and this is all just real estate stuff. I mean, I have lots of passions outside of real estate, like
Mhm.
cars. I absolutely love cars. That's a huge thing for me. And also a big thing too that is going to be happening over the next 1 year is that really starting to focus on growing my brand, YouTube, Instagram, and all that stuff.
Love it.
So that's kind of like the next 5 to 10 year-ish plan. I really have a plan for the next 5 years. A really good thing for me to do would be to sit down with myself and kind of see what that 5 to 10 years is, what I would really want once I'm
that long-term vision.
There you
33
go.
around that, you know.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
that's
awesome.
cool.
I mean, I can already see. I know you've started like a podcast, right? That you're still running. So I mean, I see your real game as well. So I mean, you're doing it already. These are kind of things that people are sometimes scared to step out too. They're like, well, what will people think of me? And it all goes down to mentality after it all. But like you're kind of setting the tone for what that looks like, for what your life looks like. What's kind of your, I should say, like what do you want to leave? Like when you think about like your age, because you're only like 20, 23, 24.
Yeah, 23, turning 24 this year.
Young
Damn.
buck, young
Yeah,
buck,
young
killing it,
Bucky.
killing the game.
I know
Yeah,
people younger than me were doing this too, so I'm
I
not the
know.
youngest.
I
I
know.
love
I
it.
see like 17-year-olds and everything. Like,
Yeah, man.
what is kind of your plan? Is this just your current business right now, or like do you still have like other businesses kind of running on the side?
It's a good question. So primarily this is my main focus now. However,
Mhm.
with real estate in general, so I am passionate about real estate, but only to like really a certain extent. What I'm really
Right.
passionate about is like developing a successful business that brings wealth to myself. Now,
Mhm.
Yeah.
what the real plan is that utilizing, and this is the vision I had from the very jump, is that using real estate as a vehicle to build wealth that I can in turn use that wealth to create things that I want, right? So
Yeah,
like, for
exactly.
example, a really big long-term plan of mine is to develop like a school system where we can teach people the proper curriculum from a very young age. And that way with myself, not only does it leave my legacy to one generation, but it's going to have an impact on generations and generations, because who knows what kind of person will be cultivated from a proper education system, what kind
Mhm.
of effect it can have in the world. So that's kind of like my mentality behind that. So yeah.
Yeah, it's cool that you say that because the education system is changing, of course, right? Especially with technology and the way people learn, right? It's different
Right.
than how we learned when we were in school. Kids are more on, either a device or something that they can actually touch with, with their screen. Us was as paper, right? So, so it was
Floppy
Absolutely.
disks.
exactly floppy disk, typewriters.
Yeah.
I ain't aging
Radio.
No,
myself or
I'm not
anything.
that old, Tim. No, don't put me in that
I'm just
category.
kidding. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
It's
But
hilarious.
no, I'm just saying is that I love that vision because you have the foresight to see what how you can impact kids or educate kids on even just entrepreneurship, right? Or not just regular school, right? So I'm sure that your mindset is focused on that and growing that industry.
Absolutely. And I think too, you know what a lot of it boils back down to, I was even thinking about this today, is that a lot of it is cultivated from coming from a lot of it is coming from the struggle. And I remember when I was struggling as a kid, and still struggle now too, is
Hmm.
that I've always wanted somebody to be a person, to be a helping hand for me. And I always remember being like, I'm so hungry for the information. I wish there was somebody who would be genuine enough to just to help me out and give me a hand.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And I think a big proponent of it as well too is that a mass majority of people who are coming from the struggle get stuck in that mentality and think that there's no life outside of that. And that's the biggest BS, biggest lie that's ever been sold to them. And that's one thing about myself and my podcast is called Road to Millions, is because I made that podcast last year when I made my first my cold call. So
Hmm.
the goal of it, and the goal throughout myself, is number one, be genuine, and number two is to show other people how I came from the gutters and how literally documenting my journey
Hmm.
from the very, very roots to where I'm going to be at 5 years down the road. That way they
Right.
can see a legitimate example of what my background is, where I come from, and understand, oh man, this guy, he actually comes from either a worse or similar, or
Hmm.
whatever it may be, position that I was in, and look where he is at now. So it just goes to show that really I do have it within me to be able to do that. And
Hmm.
that's the one thing, is that growing up all the time, is that I've always been like, people said I have an older soul, whatever it may be,
Hmm.
but I was always like, very, very individual. A lot of people wanted to go party. A lot of people, I was always like 16, 15. I was just thinking about like, what can I do to be successful? And
Mm-hmm.
I always remember just being like, I wish there were more people like me to show me. And I kind of just had to figure out the path as I went along. And I think a big goal and a big proponent of what I do is to show other people the actual journey of becoming successful, a millionaire, multi-millionaire, to bring wealth to themselves. Because I remember what it's like feeling all the despair, feeling like the world is against me. So that's kind of like
I love it.
the chains I will break, in the future, and as I document the series of what I go through.
I love it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's something I always talk about too. Is where people are like, I'm too scared to post, like, because I'm a beginner or I'm failing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like this. That's the exact reason why you should like show, like,
Exactly.
because with social media too, you have these influencers who like pretend, they put on the show like, oh yeah, I'm
Right.
driving this Benz.
Mm-hmm.
And they're
Yeah.
freaking broke or something, or like they can't even afford a dinner.
I know. They're like,
You
get
Yeah.
out
know,
of my car. You in my car.
right, right. So it's like, I think social media also puts on this perception like, oh, I have to be like this to be successful, or I have to be like this to share my journey. It's like, no, like, you're by documenting your process, you can look back and like imagine 10 years from now, you're a multimillionaire, being like, oh snap, like I remember when I only had $300 in my bank account then, or it's like there's something special
Mm-hmm.
about that, and like the people you touch, because you never know who needs the value that you bring. And I'm a big advocate of like the go giver, and like
Mm-hmm.
always giving first, and like
Absolutely.
it always
Yeah.
comes back to you, and not even considering like what's best for you. And this is kind of the reason why we created the podcast too, is
Mm-hmm.
like, you have everybody, all these established people in their businesses, like doing podcasts, but I'm like, well, what about us, like people who are up and coming, like,
Right.
to like share their story. If we didn't have this, maybe not as many people would have seen, like, your kind of story, or like
Mm-hmm.
anybody else that we bring on, especially like young people, people of color, women, like they're just freaking
Absolutely.
killing it. Like,
Right.
I think it's important to shed light on that, and to not be scared to share our vulnerabilities. Like, who cares? Like,
Mm-hmm.
somebody,
Exactly.
like you said, somebody's gonna see that and be like, and be inspired, and be like, oh, because I saw Austin's video when he first started, like, I know I'm not alone.
Right, exactly. And the thing too is that it's also about, and to tie into that as well, is that it has to come from an abundant standpoint. And what happens is
Mm-hmm.
that what I think is that the way that I think as well is that, like, if the audience doesn't like what I have to give out, then they can go and find somebody else where they do like that information.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
I'm coming from a standpoint of genuineness, and I don't care
Mm-hmm.
about, just like you said, and that's exactly how it's so funny that you bring that up, because I was literally just thinking about this an hour ago, 30 minutes ago, was that there's so much disingenuine people in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of niches, in the real estate niche and whatever niche it may be, and a lot of them are flexing like the watch, the Bentley, and I think all that stuff is dope. I like the watches, I like the chains, and I like the cars. However, it seems that a lot of the reasons why they're showing that is for the admiration of others, and it's not really coming from
Right.
something that from within, because they genuinely like it. And the thing is that also comes off in the vibe. It's almost like, I'm better than you and this and that, and
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like they need to do that they need to step on other people to make themselves feel good about themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what
Right.
upsets me, because what I don't like is disingenuine people. And I
Mm-hmm.
think
Right.
that's a big thing that pushes me, is that I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to be as genuine as possible, because I know what it's like to be on that side and see somebody like that who's like always flashing. And once again, I think that stuff is dope. I mean, there's probably gonna be a point where I'm showing my cars and stuff like that, but it's gonna be coming from a standpoint of, I like these cars. It's not because
Right.
Right. Right.
I'm trying to say, look, I'm better than you. That's not what
Yeah.
it's about. It's
Yeah.
about showing you, hey, look what I got, look where I come from. I have this now, and you can do that too. So, and
Right.
that's one big proponent of the reason why do a lot of content, is because I'm like, man, we need to get rid of these phony people. And I don't have,
Mm-hmm.
I
Right.
don't have, I don't have any issue. And that's the thing about myself, is that I have zero issue calling people out. And like, if somebody's disingenuous, I have no issue going against that.
Yeah.
And what I can say really quick as well about that is that, like, it even goes into tying with like people bullying other people. Like, to me,
Yeah. I
I'm
hate
like
that.
always about defending people who are vulnerable. And I'm like, you don't be messing with people like that. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
To me, people who try to step on other people really bothers me, and I always go out of my way to make sure that that person learns their lesson. And this is where,
Mm-hmm.
like, communication comes into play and stuff like that. And
Right.
it's kind of funny. I just posted on my Instagram story yesterday, that there's a lot of people who are teaching things they have no idea like what they're talking about, but yet they're teaching it to other people just to feel like an authoritative figure. So, it's really
Right.
important that you do your research behind somebody, or make sure that you're following somebody and taking information, and you know that their background is something that is successful and what you're looking to be also successful in.
Right.
Yeah. No, I love that because, in finding a mentor or finding someone of authority is kind of difficult, right? And especially if you're on YouTube University all the time and you're trying to find, get into real estate. Who do you find? And the reason why with Chris is that I resonated with him because he started two businesses and failed at that, and then came back from those businesses, right? And
Right.
so it was similar to my background. So I think you're right. It's just resonating with someone that you have a similar experience with, but also has the credibility to get you to where you want to go, and not trying to bully someone or not just flex. So that's the biggest thing right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I see too, like, and to touch on that, to add to that as well, is that like I have nothing good to say about Chris, and that's why I also liked his course, and it ended up helping me out. And also there's people in the real estate space as well who are doing things because they see people as a cash cow and not necessarily to help them out. Like, they're
Mm,
just putting out information. They just put some BS together to make you buy it, to use their presence for you to buy it. But their goal isn't really for you to learn. Their goal is to increase their bank
Make
account,
money.
make
yeah.
money. And that's fine and all, because I know that we're all in this to make money. However, what I have found throughout my experience so far in business is that when you focus on the money is when
Oh,
Oh, I think we lost him. He'll
technical
come back in.
difficulties.
He
Yeah.
he was too hot,
I
man.
know
He
he
was
was too
laying out the
high. I mean,
heat.
man.
He was laying out the heat, man.
Exactly.
Yeah. We'll get Austin back in. I know we're 10 minutes left in the episode, but feel free to ask your questions, guys. Yeah, Austin he was too
He was
hot.
on a roll. I was like, I was in suspense.
StreamYard was like, hey, you gotta get off, man. You spitting too many gems.
That's funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. But no, I mean,
Uh,
like that's a real thing. So, oh, here we
all
go.
right, here we go. Hold on, let's add him back.
we in
Hey,
this, I
hey,
don't know
I
what
was I
happened.
was just saying, yeah, you spit in the heat.
I was
StreamYard
spitting
turned
that
you off.
heat. Yo, they're watching us. They're watching us.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
don't want
yeah,
them to
yeah.
know.
That's funny.
But yeah, like I was saying, a lot of these people are using it as a way to see other people as cash cows. And what I was saying is that what I tend to find throughout my experience so far is that when I focus on money, I tend to get the least
Mm,
amount of money. But when I put my focus on people and helping
yeah.
people out genuinely, that money will automatically come in at a higher rate. So,
Yeah.
and that's kind of like one thing that I feel that personally in the real estate space, there's not a lot of people who are genuine and who are
Hmm.
genuinely looking for the benefit of others, and that's where I see the missing link in the real estate space, and I
Yeah.
plan on and am in the position of building my brand to fill that type of role.
Yeah. I can totally agree to that too, because I'm also in the same boat as well. Is there's not you don't really see that genuineness. You see people
Yeah.
flashing here and there, and there are those few that are low key or maybe don't even have a social media presence, but are doing amazing things, behind the scenes. But I was like, if I'm gonna be on my phone, like let me use it for good and
Hmm.
provide value. Like that's one thing. I was like, whether it's creating this podcast, whether it's the content I create, I hope people see like how genuine and like the value that I want to bring. Like I'm not worried about the money. I know that's going to come.
Hmm.
So it's like it's again going back to the go giver, where it's like you're adding value to somebody. You want to see you're more interested in like how other people can succeed, and somehow some way it always comes back to you. So I think that's what's powerful about today's age of like social media and what you put out. We have all the control at our fingertips. We can just record whatever's happening, and that's something that we just wasn't done really before we had to think we had to have this whole big brand,
Hmm.
a bunch of
Hmm.
money, and now
Yeah.
it's like you have real influencers. Like let's bring out the real influencers who necessarily don't have the flashy cars yet, or the chain and the watches. Let's have people like down doing the groundwork and building up their businesses. So I love
Yeah.
that.
Definitely.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
Yeah, and as well too is that like what you reap is what you sow. That's a law of the
Mm,
universe. So the energy you put out is the energy you're gonna get back.
mhm,
So if
Right.
you're depending on your intentions, if you're screwing people over, that's gonna come back and it's gonna bite you. But if you have the opposite on the other side of the coin, your intentions are genuine and good, and you're providing value a lot. It might not come back in 1, 2, 3, 6 months, but 1 year, 2 years, the compound effect starts to happen where okay, that work I put in, 5 years ago or 3 or 1 year ago, that
mhm.
go-giver mentality is now really being abundant now and really giving, I'm reaping the fruits from that. And that's to me is that I'm always going to pick being genuine over disingenuous, never
Oh yeah.
disingenuous. Reason why being genuine will help you out is because it's going to propel you forward to build the proper relationships to push you and be successful long-term and longevity-wise in business.
Mhm. Man, that's amazing. I mean, like you have dropped so many gems on this podcast,
StreamYard had to
really.
kick you
Yeah,
off,
I know
man.
with Streamheart, we had a brief exit, but you came back. I love it. Also, I just want, we got like five or so minutes and stuff left, so I wanted to ask, like, what would you like to leave with, the viewers out there and listeners out there, as a last kind of minute thought for you.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can say a couple things. First thing is that really you can do anything. You hear this all the time. You can do anything you want. However, it's the truth. And the only limitations that are true is the limitations you create within your own self. You have to educate yourself, learn about the mind, learn how it works. There's a few books you can pick up. One really good one is You Are a Badass. Think and Grow Rich is a really good one as well to begin to unwind these old habits of the mind. And another thing as well is to understand, despite whatever age you are, it doesn't matter if you're 15, it doesn't matter if you're 20, 30, 45, 50, age is just a number,
Yeah.
right? And at the end of the day, it's about what you do and the actions you take that get the results that you want, not your age, right? And that's a big
Yep.
misinterpretation that people have is that
Yeah.
whether they feel like they're too young or whether they're too old, that's all a bunch of BS and all that doesn't matter. Age is
Hmm.
just a number. It's about the knowledge, wisdom, and actual value you provide for other people that's going to get you the results you want and not your age. So yeah, I guess I can tie it in with that.
We quoting Aaliyah now. Age ain't nothing but a number.
Yeah, let's go.
I love
I
it. I
love
love
it.
it.
I love
No, I
it.
think that's big because, people didn't realize, like, even Gary Vee, like, I mean, he's like in his late 40s or whatever, and it took him years just to get to where he was at, right?
Right,
So, and people think he was an overnight success, which
right.
is not. And
That's
I think
crazy.
a lot of people want that instant gratification, right?
Absolutely.
And the reason why is because of the social media aspect is like they see people successful, they think they can be successful like that, right? So I think that's a great point of, age isn't, just a number really. And man, that's dope. I love it. I
Yeah,
love it.
man, absolutely. And as the saying goes, stay in your lane, man, and focus on. Don't check if somebody else's grass is greener.
Mm,
Yep.
Focus on your own grass. And if you
mm-hmm,
are paying attention to other people and seeing what other people are doing and being envious, it only takes away energy from yourself and what you can be building for your own self. And the thing is that it
Yep.
doesn't matter what age you are, it is what it is. And if you're 45, 35, whatever it is what it is, and you just have to proceed forward with what you have. And that mentality is what will get you the actual results you want, rather than being envious and wishing you had what other people have.
Right. I talk about that all the time too. Is I
mm-hmm.
think there's a saying, I can't think of it, where um comparisons is a thief of joy,
That's
where
a good one.
Yeah.
we compare, especially like, um people have different journeys, and maybe there's some that are similar to ours, and we see them taking off, and it's so hard. I mean, mentally, that's where, like, mentally you have to prepare, where it's like, well, how come I'm not taking off? Well,
Mm-hmm,
there could be. That's where you have to dig deeper, right? Well, why am I not doing this? Oh, well, I haven't been consistent. And I think, just calling 2 times a week
mm-hmm.
is enough. So, you really have to, it all starts with you. Focus on your lane. You don't see sprinters like sprinting and like looking at their competition unless it's the same bowl or something. But like, they're staying in their lane, focusing on the finish line. Like that's all. That's the simplest way I can like share of like, don't look at what other people are doing. Like, of course, you want to stop and share their success, or congratulate their success, but
Mm-hmm.
focus on what you have, and you'll start seeing huge results because of it. So
Nice,
Absolutely,
love it,
nice.
love
absolutely.
love
I think
it.
we have a
Well,
couple questions, right? on
Let's
the book, the
see.
mentality book, I think.
Oh, yeah. What was that mentality book you were talking about?
Yeah.
The technical book.
Oh, are you talking about Dianetics? That one?
Yeah, Dianetic.
Dianetics.
Yeah, so Dianetics is like I can kind of preface this real quick as well. There's like some kind of backstory with the author and stuff like that. You just have that actual focus on the real information it gives you. It's a difficult read. I would say just get a dictionary, have that dictionary ready, and read through that book because it teaches you the actual genuine, legitimate like graph, we can call it, of how the mind works. So that's really good. That one's more advanced. So I would kind of like work my way into it. Some really good ones to start to reading is, like I said, Think and Grow Rich. You Are a Badass. There's another one called The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. That's also a really
I
good
like
book.
that one.
Yeah.
And there's another one as well called the Four Essential Agreements or something like that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I've
Four,
heard of it. I
the
haven't
Four
read it yet.
Agreements, I think, is what it's called. Those are all really good books to kind of get you in that mentality.
Dope.
Love it. Well, Austin, how can people reach you?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way. So I have a podcast called Road to Millions. You can learn a little bit more about me there and more about mindset if you guys like that. Also, a really good way to reach me would be my Instagram, which is at Austin Lupercio, as you see it here on the screen. And that's the best way to really get a hold of me.
Nice.
Right.
Well, thank you so much, Austin.
Yeah, appreciate you.
It's been a real
lit.
conversation. I really
yeah.
appreciate you hopping on. Wish you the best of luck. I'm sure we'll be tapping in with each other throughout this journey.
Big facts.
But you guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, reminders. You know,
Definitely.
we come in every Wednesday, 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern. If you like what you're seeing, hit that like button, hit that
There you
subscribe.
go.
Next week it'll be it'll be different. I'm flying down to LA. We're
Yep.
doing a live show. We won't be doing it on Wednesday. We'll be doing it on Friday. We'll let you know on the times, but it'll be really exciting. We got a really special guest talking about NFTs, crypto,
Ooh,
all
that
that
sounds
stuff.
good.
Yeah. Make sure to
It's gonna
tune
be
in
a
on
good
that.
one.
I'll tune in on that.
But Austin, man, have a
Hey, thank you.
great day. Appreciate you, bro. Talk to you guys later.
Yeah.
Appreciate
See you guys
y'all.
later.
Later.
All right.
All right.